Matt Ribaudo, Health Zone Podcast here, episode 1. Today's guest, I am here with Cale Anjoorian, the president, CEO, and founder of a company called Lifebred. Cale,
hello, Matt.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
So, I want to get into, there's a lot of questions here. Obviously, with Lifebred, it kind of lends to the name. Like, what exactly is Lifebred? Like, we know that it's based around bread. So tell us a little bit about this company, and tell us a little bit about where you came from, how you came up with this concept, what your background is.
Sure.
Let us get to know Cale.
Sure. Thank you. So it's a little bit of a story. I'm not that old, but old enough to be able to at least tell a story these days. So I grew up in Lawrence, nice town of Lawrence. My parents are from Lawrence, and when I was growing
about
up,
20 minutes outside of Boston.
And when I was growing up, Lawrence, it wasn't necessarily the nicest place to live, but one of the things that I really liked, I love sports and love getting into sports. I really like contact sports more than anything. And there was a boxing club, up on top of this old Rent-A-Center. You might remember, where that was. And you take the fire escape up, and it was the dirtiest, dingiest place, filled with a lot of bad people. But for me, it was an outlet. It was better than doing the other things that, say, my friends were doing at the time. And I started to like it. I started to, really enjoy it. And with that, I didn't want to fight heavyweight because, those are big boys out there, right? So with my height, I could stay around the light heavyweight, weight class, which was 178. Well, because of my height and my build, I really had to eat clean, very, very clean. So, I went through years of eating my raw vegetables and tuna fish, I didn't eat anything else. And as I grew older and found a better way to make a living with my head, to make some money, I started getting into technology and all that good stuff. I wanted to continue to eat clean, though, and it was really hard to do as age catches up with you. So I said, I sat down, and as I was getting into technology, I was jumping from sector to sector, entertainment and retail and finance and you name it. I ventured into the pharmaceutical, sector, which was not only sort of just mind-opening, but very a humble experience, because when you meet scientists, people who dedicate their lives to finding a cure, finding a solution to a problem, they are the most humble people and just so passionate about their job. Nothing else really around them. They don't get really affected by a lot of the things that you would in other types of sectors, media and entertainment and so on and so forth. So much sort of outside noise, There's that, and then meeting people who suffer, from an allergen or suffer from a disease.
What so with the pharmaceutical sector, what types of drugs were you working on, or did you have a hand in developing, or who were you rubbing elbows with? What were you participating in?
I had the pleasure of working with a lot of scientists and just unbelievable people in the GI and the gastrointestinal field, which really helped inspire the Lifebred side.
Explain to the listeners what that is too. Like, we all hear the term GI all the time, but what is it, and how does it relate to our body functioning properly?
Sure, your anytime you intake food, or a chemical or a liquid, right? It's got to pass through your gastrointestinal system. So that's your upper intestines, your stomach, your lower intestines, your bowels, right? From sort of below your lungs, in a sense, right, down, right? So as it enters, it's got to exit, right? Unfortunately, that's the nasty part of the business, but you got to talk about it. So learning that area and meeting people who sort of suffer from, in this case, allergens related to celiac or soy or dairy that really affects, the GI system, led me down a path that said, hey, what can I do in my life that makes a difference, right? I felt like what I was doing currently was making a difference. I'm in the technology field and I support a lot of those, components, but what can I do? And I also was struggling to eat healthy myself. And I said, well, I love bread. Who doesn't love bread? I'm Armenian and I love bread. Most of my friends are Italian and they absolutely, they grew like bread is a staple, right?
I'm Italian, and my family actually comes from where your family does. My grandfather, my great aunts grew up in Lawrence.
Yeah.
When our family came over from Ellis Island, that's what they did. They were part of that Italian group that migrated to Lawrence.
Yeah.
And I remember as a child going to visit my great aunts in Lawrence, and the first thing we would always do when we get there is we would go to the local bakery, the Italian bakery. And it was, the whole thing was, let's go get fresh, healthy bread. Growing up, like when we look at the food pyramid, there's your bread. It's part of the food pyramid. It's something that we were taught that we were supposed to eat. It's healthy. And where did the last 20 years, where did this kind of paradigm shift come from, where all of a sudden bread became the enemy? And why is that?
Right. So that's a great point. Like, there was nothing more Americana than bread, milk, right, and cheese, right? Or, hey, there's a big storm coming. Go get your bread and your milk and your batteries, right?
Eggs,
bread was always in the mix, right? And from a lot of the research and a lot of talking to folks, experts in the fields, it's back then, they didn't process, food the way they do today. Grain is one of the largest commodities, in the United States. It's plentiful, right? And taking pure grain and then stretching that beyond its means, adding a lot of compounds and chemicals to it. We call it factory processed foods, right? There's more and more and more and more of it, I'd say in the past 15 years, 20 years, which is super concerning. The information that I know and the things that I see, it's shocking to see what is being put in our foods today to make them last longer, right? To preserve them, a multitude of different things.
So the food today is different than the food we ate 30 years ago.
Right. And coming from, an Italian family, your nonna baked it in the oven. She used
organic.
She used four ingredients, right?
Growing up, there was we didn't talk about organic, non-organic. When we ate something that was baked that day,
right,
that's organic.
Right. So now you buy a bag of flour, it's likely that there are GMOs, there's chemicals in there. And you see this as you look over a span of 20 years that people today are being born, with allergies that we never really had when we were growing up, more and more and more. And I think it's just through the consumption of these, factory processed foods. And then, as folks are having, families and so on, it's sort of passing that on. And you see allergens really start to spike up now.
That's an excellent, that was one of my questions to you I've always been baffled by this, or lately been baffled with this. It's like, where are all these allergens coming from? Where are all these allergies? It's, there's it seems like there's a new allergy every day now that I've never even heard of.
Right.
Is this caused by these GMOs? And a lot of these terms, I think people hear them all the time, but they don't know why it's bad for them. They just know not to do it, or whatever, or this is causing
GMO is a marketing word, right? If they spelt it out, genetically modified organisms, people would stay away from those things, So there's a lot of, marketing and abbreviation of these things because they'll run out of label space. But you're right. The food today is different. And these allergens, they're real. They really affect people. It could be slightly, and it could be, so extreme that it's even airborne for some folks. And that's also one of the reasons why, for Lifebred, I've got a mission statement. And one of them is it has to be frictionless, right? So it's got to look like bread and feel like bread. And my bread isn't just for folks who suffer from allergies. They're for people who want to eat a healthy bread. So that was the first mission statement. The second mission statement is it should try to push to hit the top 8 allergens that are out there today: dairy and gluten and soy and peanut and stuff like that. And number 3, and most importantly, it had to taste good. It had to have taste. Gluten, which is, I'd say, it became, the buzzword, over the past 10 years, 15 years. It was so bad. Gluten, right? Well, almost everything has gluten in it because gluten is a glue, right? It's an adhesive, allows things to stick together.
To go into that a little bit too, why is gluten so bad? Like, obviously, it's a glue, but is that how does that relate to? Is that sticking to our gut? Is that sticking to? Is that a? I mean, we kind of laughed about it. Nobody wants to really talk about how the body processes and eliminates toxins, through bowel movements or whatever it is. But what's even more disgusting than that is thinking that doesn't happen. That stays inside of you. And we've a lot of like the buzz right now is that health starts with the gut, and kind of like some of the relations between the gut and the brain. And
right. So a lot of the CrossFit folks say abs start in the kitchen, right?
But it's gluten and yeast and some of this other stuff that is commonly tied to this bread that's being served today. Are these some of the cause and effect of some of the damaged GI?
I mean, gluten's in everything because it's cheap. Right, and we have a high commodity of it, right, and it's easy, right, and your body, it's not that gluten, disintegrates in your body and sits there, like the old tale, if you swallow your gum, it's going to sit in there for 7 years or whatever. What it does, though, is your body does naturally have a hard time, and more so than others, processing, gluten correctly. So, the intake of gluten, especially those who are celiac, is much more severe. But for just a normal person, there's bloating, right? There's cramping, there's pain, and there's high blood pressure. There's a lot of things that can spawn from, a lot of ingestion of gluten. For celiacs, it's even worse. It's that amplified by 1,000. It's life changing almost. For those who suffer from say IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and that type of stuff. Gluten only impacts the symptoms that they have. So being able to provide those folks who suffer from these allergies, they deserve to have taste too, right? Back then, people were slapping gluten-free on things that, never had gluten in them to begin with because it was such a buzzword that people were just grabbing it, right? And they were making money. It's all about making money, right? For me, it's let's give them a high-quality product that is all natural and organic, all right, that they can enjoy. I mean, really bring bread back into your life. Right? Nobody eats burgers anymore wrapped in lettuce.
I was just going to say that, and I didn't even know that was such a thing. I was actually traveling for work. I was out in the West Coast, and I swear to God, I saw somebody eating a burger that was wrapped in lettuce. Exactly. I didn't know that was, and that's where I'm just like, man, this has gone too far. This has really gone too far.
Like I always have these fun facts, when I sit in front of chefs. And I talk them through this, and I say, the average American eats 53 pounds of bread a year. There's 120 million sandwiches made a day in the United States. The numbers are staggering, right? But times are changing. So, investments, VC investments in new companies, like Impossible Foods, the Impossible Burger. There's no more meat, right? So they're starting to, those things are starting to change. Bread, it's more like gluten. It's gluten-free. It's gluten-free. Why? Because you can add something to it, right? So what's the first thing you do when you take a piece of bread out of the bag? You put something on it, right, to make it taste good. Lifebred, we want you to complement the taste we've put in it. We don't want you to have to put something on it to taste good, and that's why we have 4 versions. We're coming out with hamburger, buns.
What are the 4 versions that you have right now?
So we have 4 versions named Unity, Free, Natural, and Heart. I just don't want to call them, white and that type of stuff. I wanted to give it a little bit of a thought process when you're thinking about this. They're all very individual in their own right. But when Unity is a much more sweeter type of bread used in, peanut butter marshmallows and from desserts, bread pudding and French toast and stuff like that. So Lifebred allows you to use it and apply it. What do we say? 5 things: taste, tone, texture, applicability, and pliability. Right? It should move. It should be able to bend and not be like cardboard. But every sitting, Lifebred can be applied from breakfast all the way to dessert, with bringing taste back in. From hearty, we've catered heart to the more sort of CrossFit folks that are very active in life. They like we've polled them. We've taken surveys. They like more of a hearty type of bread. It could be used with like jams and fig jams and everything. It's got the highest rate of protein. One slice of Lifebred has between 6 to 9 grams of protein in one slice.
Wow.
And there's no cholesterol.
How does that
high
compare
in
to
fiber.
a typical slice of bread?
Let's just say that one slice of Lifebred has more protein than a hard-boiled egg. Okay. And a lot of people relate protein to eggs.
Absolutely.
Right? So we've been able to, right, to sort of...
You have your boxing background. We all remember Rocky Balboa slurping down
body,
his,
no more drinking raw eggs out of glasses. You could just have a slice of Lifebred.
Slice of Lifebred. And he would have had the same protein, the same energy going into his workout.
So from athletes, I was told something that I was just in awe, that at spring training for football camp, that there are pounds and pounds of there's hundreds of peanut butter sandwiches that go to like linemen, and they just eat because of the amounts of protein they need to consume on a given day. Could you imagine if you slapped, you get the bookends back in your life, right? Because people want bookends. They want the bread to be able to eat the sandwich with. And now, if you, eat a peanut butter sandwich with Lifebred, you're up in the 40 grams of protein range with just one sandwich, right? So for me, it was finding something that can cover the bases, as many bases as possible, can hit as many people as possible, can help as many people as possible. You don't even have to have an allergen to enjoy it. You can just start eating healthy, but give you the most value add in one shot.
So that sounds like some low-hanging bread, no pun intended, but going after some of these sports teams and going after so now you've traveled the country with your message, with your product. You're obviously big here in the Boston area, but you're also a national brand. Tell us a little bit about some of this expansion, where you would like to evolve the company, what markets you would like to penetrate. I mean, I think like getting into what you just said, getting into clubhouses, getting into wherever it might be with some of these professional teams. That's
the sports area, I think, is huge. And they're sourced out to like the Aramarks of the world, like the large catering companies of the world. So it's best to kind of get through them as a great channel. As in business, there's a hierarchy at everything, right? There's testing cycles to everything. We've done a lot of the work. We've done all the legwork at Lifebred. We've proven the product. We've scaled the product. We've polled. I've sat down with chef after chef after chef, executive chefs to local chefs, had them try it, taken their feedback. So we've perfected a great product at this point that's ready for prime time.
So I think that's a big point right there. Now, you don't necessarily come from a culinary background.
No,
you're not a baker.
Nope.
It's how did you go about this process of perfecting this taste? Because everyone that I've spoken to, I've tried the product. It tastes phenomenal. And not only that, you've penetrated some of the biggest, the best restaurants here in Boston. The Ribaudo group. They're in the. These are high end for people that aren't the listeners that aren't in this area. These are the highest end, the best restaurants here in the Boston area, some of the best restaurants, throughout the country. And Lifebred is there and served. And I'll tell you, I've tasted that bread not knowing that it was your product. And I asked Nick, I was just like, man, who's your baker? Who's your, it's just kind of like, it's on a wink and no Italian wants to reveal their recipes, but talk to us a little bit about that, because the taste truly is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think so. The taste comes. We could have gone to market with a great science project, in 9 out of 10 companies would have, but I won't do that. I won't do that to our consumers. I won't do that to folks who deserve better. So when it got to a great science project, I then went on a search for a culinary expert who was passionate, just as crazy as I am, and can just bring a whole nother layer to, and this is the only word I can kind of think of, to refine Lifebred to the most amazing consumer product ever. I did find, and I found her. Found her in downtown New York City, and Katie is amazing. We connected through LinkedIn of all people, which she was about 3 days from shutting it off because all of her work in the Food Network. She's many years with the Food Network, making all of those folks look like stars, right? And I met her in the lobby, and we locked eyes. We hit it off, and I said, I got this crazy idea here, and she's like, wait a minute, there's no gluten, there's no yeast, there's no GMOs, it lacks, soy, peanut, no gums, and I'm like, nope. And and she's like, so what is it like? Just like dust in a pan? Is this just is this a good idea? And I said, no, it's it's reality, and here we go. And her, you could just tell. And I sat with so many chefs. You tell them the story about everything that's not in it and everything that's great about it, and they look at you like you're out of your mind, right? And then I'll have a sample there. And, the normal chef, and she did the same thing. They go through their checks and balances, right? They're tasting, they're twisting all this stuff. And then at the last minute, they put it in their mouth. And they'll push away, and they'll just sit there, and they just start thinking. So, I'll pull the bucket over, and I say, no offense. And if you know a chef, they're very honest people. God love them. I love honesty, right? And they're like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever tasted. We've been called innovative and the holy grail of bread by 4th and 5th generation bakers. And now these are people who were back in the old days making it out of 3 ingredients and have seen the way it's come up. And we start to see now, like with Nick, is the consumers are now demanding, right, better quality, high quality foods. They're expecting this stuff to be in high quality restaurants. He has a staple of high quality restaurants, and there's a shift now of healthier options now on their menus, allergen-free options on their menus, and they're even starting to prep their kitchens to be able to not contaminate with the tool sets. One of the hardest part in getting into restaurants these days is the amount of behind-the-scenes work that needs to happen to truly make, a gluten-free or an allergen-free meal available to a consumer. There's a lot of liability in the back kitchen. There's a lot going on. You've probably gone back to many of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there, and that does take some time. So that's why online, you can get Lifebred on, lifebred.com, and buy it to yourself. You get it right from the certified manufacturer, the facility that we have, and it comes right to you, kind of untouched until you open it up.
Well, I think what's really impressive about this, too, we've spent a lot of time talking about what's not in it, and some of these, chemicals that have caused disease, have caused allergies over the last 30 or so years. But I like that what is in it, you have, was it 20 ingredients?
Yeah.
20? But you can pronounce everything that's in it. Kind of like the rule of thumb is if you can't pronounce something, if you can't read the label, put it back on the shelf.
Right.
With your product. And I don't know how much you want to get into that, but it's you've kept it fairly simple, but you've been able to put together something that is revolutionary. And the simplicity is part of the brilliance.
Yeah. So thank you very much for saying that. It's been hard, getting to this spot. Lifebred, the 4 versions of Lifebred are made up of 20 all natural and or organic ingredients. It's a combination of those 20 that make up the 4 versions, and they're very distinct. So, very proud of that we didn't have to go and build a catalog of ingredients. And they're all ingredients like you can read, like applesauce, like almond butter, just water, just really simple stuff. And where the magic comes in is in what we're actually patent pending right now is the process and how we make it. So is novel enough to go and file a patent in which we're in the queue and slowly making our way through for patent pending, is how we make it. That's where the special sauce is, because I didn't create a new ingredient. I didn't go to Mars and pull something that is not here on Earth. We're using 20 all natural organic ingredients, but we found a way to stretch those ingredients to their edge, to get the bonding and the rise that bread requires to be bread, and we were able to figure that out.
So it's a proprietary. It's not proprietary ingredients. It's a proprietary mix, so to speak.
Yeah, and so I was faced with two options when I was starting this: recipe secret, or a provisional patent on how you make it. And with a recipe secret is you have to keep it secret. And the moment it gets out or it's reverse engineered, you're out of luck, right? And in today's day and age, right, if you've been in business, and you've probably been through this as well, is you got to protect yourself, and you got to protect your assets, because there's a lot of not so nice people out there,
That's for sure. So this has been. How long did it take you to perfect this recipe? I can't imagine that you nailed this on the first try.
Oh no, yeah, trial and error. So I learned from a lot of folks and a lot of successful folks that failure is a need to success. You have to fail to succeed, and it took me a while to accept failure and to accept risk. Because you're only here once, right? So you wanna have a good story on the way out. You know what I mean? So it took about a year and a half, on the science side. It took about another year and a half on the culinary side to really perfect it well. So it's about 3 years, 3 good solid years. Funded by ourselves. I was also very passionate about. I'm not going to go and take other people's money until I'm confident that this product is real, it's viable, is a value add to society, and it's just fantastic. And did it on our dime to do that. And now, we're there. So it's now at this point a commercialization effort, as we call it, right? This is right in your wheelhouse of marketing and PR and press and everything that you're doing, amazing with. That's where, we are, and we're right at the cusp here of starting to, really get out there. In this here, being able to sit down with you, and be able to be heard is amazing. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity again.
Absolutely. So, speaking of the marketing side of this, you have, we talked about, you travel the country. Actually, you just got off a flight to sit down and come here and sit with us tonight. But what do you have any big endorsers? Like who's behind the product? Like you got to have a few fun stories here.
So we're working on it. I do have one interesting story as it relates. It's kind of good and bad. So one of the linebackers of the Philadelphia Eagles loved the bread. And, I said, hey, do you mind, you just so happen to be playing my favorite team of all time, the Patriots, in the Super Bowl in Minnesota. But, hey, business is business. Do you mind, supporting the brand? And he's like, absolutely. I love it, And so I end up sitting in the Eagles section of it was a U.S. Bank Stadium out in Minnesota. And I got to tell you, the Philly fans are very passionate fans for sure. So I'm stuck there, and I on purpose wore neutral colors. I couldn't wear any blue. And although it was the most fantastic,
was this part of the arrangement with the endorsement?
Well, I didn't know. It was the arrangement that was right in the middle of Philadelphia, universe, as they haven't been to or ever won a Super Bowl. So I tried to protect myself there. But he was a huge supporter of the brand. It was one of the best games ever. Unfortunately, we didn't come out on top, and I couldn't get out of that arena fast enough. But he's been great. We're working on, I think, some big endorsements now. I can't sort of talk. The lawyer. Once the lawyers get involved, they're like, time out, hush, hush. But that's a pretty funny story because it got pretty hostile. Sitting in those in that section.
I can only imagine. I've been in games here in Foxborough. I know what our fan base is, and I've also I spend a good amount of time down in Philadelphia, so I've been in games. I've sat in games over there as well. So it's
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I know a lot of folks in the boxing industry, and I send them samples all the time, and I say, I'm not, you're a friend. If you want, to, promote the brand, I'm all for it. I'd love to help you out if and you're helping me out. But more formal, I think, sponsorship or brand ambassadors, we're currently working on now. And this show here is a great platform to talk about this stuff. It's really hard to be able to get out, on social media and talk about this stuff. I think a lot of people with severe allergens don't want to talk about it because of all the side effects that they have to deal with. And they don't want to be associated to it. But this program, and I'm working with other health experts in TV, in kind of TV land there, that love it so much. They're coming to me saying, I want to be a brand ambassador, and I don't really want much for it, and I want to be able to provide. I have a platform, Cale, and I want to be able to, push this. I am in love with it so much. So those are starting to come in too, and we're starting to source those as well, and which, I'm so thankful for. And it's really the product. It's the product speaks for itself. I say the battle is getting it to people's lips. Once they take a bite, they're hooked, just like that.
But it's and speaking of the professional boxing world, going back to this again, I'm part of the I help out with the management team of a professional fighter. He's world ranked in the 154-pound division, one of the most stacked divisions in boxing, and he recently moved up to 154 from 147 because he was depleting himself. He's an Italian, like me, and he was depleting himself of bread and of certain things because. We could talk to a bunch of different nutritionists, but a lot of old school boxers, they just do things the way they've always done it. They cut stuff out, not knowing exactly always what to add back in.
Right.
And this is a great solution for something like that. And I'm definitely going to introduce Lifebred to him. But it's and the thing is, after the weight cut and after the weigh-in, we have 24 hours before the fight. What do? We all go to an Italian restaurant and load up.
Yeah.
And we always say this. I was like, is this the answer? Like, is this really the answer?
That's a great point. You're bringing back a lot of crazy memories. Jump roping in the sauna, and with the rubber suit on, trying to cut weight. But and that's a great example of right after weigh-in, they go and they load up. They try to push as much nutrition in their body, and a lot of the fighters now will just hammer down shakes because the pasta in the restaurants, it might not be they've got the chemicals in it, they've got the gluten in it, and it's actually prohibiting the body from taking the nutrients it needs within 24 hours of a fight. If they were to consume Lifebred, they're taking in a wealth of vitamin D and fiber, and there's no cholesterol, and vitamin A, and there's high potassium and high proteins, great for muscle recovery and stuff like that, and energy levels. There isn't any added sugar in Lifebred. Universities have come to us very, very interested, not only in being able to give a healthy alternative, but the fact that there isn't any sugar crashes with Lifebred. You can consume it, and it gives a nice, consistent level of energy without those crashes, and taking on regular white types of bread.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So the name of this podcast is The Health Zone. So one of the things that we, the theme or thesis that we have here is what is it that puts you in the health zone? What is it? What's your health zone message to the listeners? So kind of give it to you here, and just like as a final thought, what's your, what message would you like to deliver to the listeners here?
It's, I said before, don't be afraid to fail. Live every day like it's your last, right? When it comes to Lifebred, it's like humble pie to me. I always think you should take a bite of humble pie every day. You should reset. You should, people in general, I think, are amazing. I think people have amazing skills. Everybody's different, but we're all the same. So we should all treat each other equally, and stay healthy. It's more important than ever to stay healthy. That'll allow you to have a good life and a happy life. and just keep pushing, keep making impact, make an impact in your neighborhood, make an impact at work, make an impact as far as you can reach. Try to make an impact, and that's what I've tried. I'm trying to make an impact.
Wonderfully said. Cale, where can everyone get Lifebred?
So you can get it on our website, www.lifebred.com. So that's LIFEBRED, like bread for life, .com. And there are a couple local sort of market stores that really concentrate on that. That's up on our website too. And if you go into a restaurant, any restaurant, and they don't have Lifebred, ask for it because you deserve it. And it should be there for you.
This is Cale Anjoorian, President and CEO of Lifebred, the guest today on the Health Zone. I'm Matt Ribaudo. Everyone, live a healthy and vibrant life and have an impact, like Cale says.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you
very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.